The ideas of history. So the methods of okay. So a tendency is there in the history to colored by the current ideas of every age or country. The Greeks glorified the rational element in the history. The Romans had the eye of political events, and the church historians made good life in the history, the God's life in the history. The Germans made the imperialistic history, and lastly, the Marxists were the they make the history as materialistic history. So here we are discussed the so many methods for the history. So many are defined various writers like uh, Karl Marx and Germans, Europeans, so Greeks, more and more people were discussed upon the history. They are all uniformly says that history is a science. History is a important subject in the world. So man has conscious which produced a rational will. The rational will uh, is not a root for the human institutions of human history. History is nothing but embodiment or the objectification of the rational will, which also produce art, religion, and philosophy. So, history is most valuable subject in the world. We know very well, and it was played the important role to reconstruct the vivid, progressive, and scientific methods for the development of human beings and the countries. So, what is the meaning of history? Who found the history? First, the who enlightened that history in the world. So it is a necessary to understand that meaning of history for having a proper understanding of the history. So the Greeks, so they are well-known philosophers in the world. So Greeks were the pioneers of the uh, defining the history. The term history derived from the Greek historia or histopia. So, historia means inquiry, research, examine, and information. So, once again, the historia, this is the Greek word, which means the inquiry and research or examine or the information. So this is the meaning related to the history. So history is a record of unique events in the life of mankind. So it is stir and vibration of life. So history is the barometer to record the progress of mankind. The term history has been taken from German word. You know that German word, the history, the same meaning of Germany word is Geschichte. That is called Geschichte, which means the intelligible and significant narrative of past events. Narrative of past events. So, history is the record human actions. History is the record of human actions and human thoughts and unobserved theories. So it is recorded of the past events. History also means an epic, examines news, record events, etc. So all this, the which history is main meaning of history is search, research, and analyze. So this is the original meaning of history. So the Greeks were opened that research and examine, and the same meaning of in German language is called Geschichte. So which means the narrative of past events, narration of past events, or the record of past events, or the record of past events. So history is the light and the truth. History is enlightenment of life. History is enlightenment of life, and history is a truth. History is a truth, but a search thereof, a sermon thereon, a concentration there too. History is a science, no less or no more. History is a science. It is no less and no more. So, like here, so many historians are opined that history is, it is a study in the systematic way due to the chronological orders, systemic way of chronological orders, a uh, concernation the genealogical and the chronological orders too. So history attempts to give us the meaning of life, the meaning of life. So we tested afterwards so many biographies or novels or texts, so many things are examined by the historians. So it is the so many texts were examined by the historians. The history attempts the main life of the human beings, and the other is to combine the merits of drama or epic poetry with the merit of the truth. So history has ability to improve an understanding of man. History is the ability to improve the understanding of man. It is for human self-knowledge. It is for human self-knowledge. History has always been what a human being is thought about the past, and this sense is always been of creation of the past. Always been the creation of past. Many historians are defined the history in scientific ways. In scientific ways, the definitions were useful to understand the history and historiography. The who was delivered the definitions by the philosophers, the historians. So they are delivering the well-known definitions for us. So history is one of the most important and most important and valuable information given by the history, and the history is a the valuable subject all social sciences. That's why history is a mother science. So many definitions are opened by the philosophers, mainly the many scholars, like many scholars, writers, philosophers, or thinkers, historians are opined their opinions on the history. So they are opined their opinions on the history as a definitions. So mainly the primary source of history from the Greeks. The main definitions made by the Greeks. So the Greeks were the first to define the history in the middle 5th century CA, middle 5th century CA, named as Herodotus, the father of the history. Herodotus was the father of the history who wrote firstly in history as the Histories of Herodotus. The book is Histories of Herodotus, written by Herodotus. So the book is denote us about the history of Greek-Persian wars. Greco-Persian wars. The Herodotus says about that wars between Greek and Persian armies. He called the that histories are called that history of Herodotus. Histories of Herodotus. By this, he meant simply the result of his enquiries or research into the event of the Greek-Persian wars and factors leading into it. Uh, which factors are leading into it? The human nature does not change, and all activities they organized with the same interpretation with motive different only the degree of details but their basic nature. Another Greek writer, the Thucydides, the second Greek writer was Thucydides. So he defined on history. History is a story of things. History is a stories of things. So they are worthy of being remembered. Those worthy things are being remembered. So we know the very well historian, the Francis Bacon. Francis Bacon defined about the histories is so he was opined the definition about the history. History is a discipline. So history is a discipline that makes man wise. That makes man wise. So who are learned about the history, they are being a they are got the much of knowledge. That's why he says about the definition of history. History is a discipline that makes man wise. So man was much of wisdom is different from mental sharpness or distinguishness between the right or whether it is right or wrong. So the subject of history gives the wisdom to the human beings. The history is given to the wisdom to the human beings. So the great philosopher, we know very well Karl Marx. He was advocated about the history is the materialistic interpretation about history. He was compared with the classes of society. So he defined in the following word that like the history of all the hitherto existing society is history of class struggle. History of class struggle, which means he explained about that history. So the struggle between two classes. What are the two classes? So the poor class and the rich class. So history is nothing but the class struggle. Class struggle between the haves and have-nots. So he was opened like that. And the eminent professor in more modern history at Cambridge, London, defined history as the unfolding story of a human being. Lord Acton. Lord Acton defined as on history is the unfolding story of human freedom. So he emphasized here the freedom, the man born very free and but always in chains. So like that here also the unfolding story of unfolding story, freedom of human life. So E.H. Carr, he is a in his work, what is the history? E.H. Carr written a book that means what is history. He says in that history is a continuous process. History is a continuous process, a interaction between historians and his facts. It is continuous process between historian who recorded the incidents as sequentially. So he was recorded that truths only or facts only through the evidences. Facts only through the evidences. So like that, here it is an unending dialogue between the past and present. It is a unending dialogue. There is no stop the dialogue. Unending dialogue between the past and present. So he was linked with the past. History, present linked with the past. So today, present, tomorrow will being a history. So like that, here also he linked with the history. So Leakey defined, a professor Leakey defined that history is a record and explanations of more values. Explanations of more values. Leakey here emphasized that moral values. Moral values and he explained about the records. The who the historian was recorded that records were he follow the ethics and morals and he composed the truths only in his texts. It is made by the historian only. So all the explanations, the administrative conditions also and given the moral and ethical values for the human and human beings. John Bury described the history. History is a science, no less, no more. History is a science, no less, no more, which means the science and the life sciences also, the technological sciences also there, be there, and history compare with the life sciences, it is no less and no more. So he emphasized that history is a scientific method, history is a science, it is not less than any subject, it is not greater than any subject. Why? Because of it is a science. So in inaugural address at a Cambridge in 1903, so John Bury was delivered like this. So Dr. Radhakrishnan, Dr. Radhakrishnan says that the history is the memory of a nation or a race. A memory of a nation or a race. So Radhakrishnan emphasized here what is the meaning of a nation? A group of people which was determined territories, lived in the determined territories. So, like that, here he emphasized that he says the memory of nation. Suppose we take the freedom movement or independent movement. So, it is a memory of our nation. So, and a race. Which race? The all the Indians are was one race. There is one race that is an Indians. That is an Indians. So like that, history is a memory of a nation and memory of a race. So the discovery of historical facts should be the uh, historical facts should be in scientific method and explain the same way. So history is essential for all, not a life sciences, not a social sciences. History is need to be today's, the current days. History is needful, essential for all human beings. So why? Because of they must know about their past. They must know about their past. So this is the definitions. So the all the definitions. Some Greek historians says that the history means the search or inquiry, and the fragments or the incidents. Uh, Geschichte in German language, they are defined that incidents or fragments. So many historians are, somebodies are, some philosophers are stressed on that morals and ethics. Some of them the linked with the past and present. So history is a science. History is a record, the sequence of a record for the incidents. So, what is the nature of history? We are going to nature of the history. The what is the nature? History is explained about that all the things. So, which means the born of a human being to the end of the life, all the main incidents are recorded in the history. So, primarily we are discussed in history the cradle of all ancient civilizations happened to be the river valleys we know. So, the primitive man, the ancient man, they are settled at the bank of water bodies. The bank of water bodies or the bank of rivers, or they are lived nearest to the water bodies. So many civilizations are raised all the world at the river banks. So the climate conditions of Africa also so earned for it the nickname as the dark continent. It is nicknamed of dark continent. Why? Because of the all the people were seems to be black, and not only the physical features of black. So they are lived in dark knowledge. They are lived in dark knowledge. So the England escaped many times from the foreign occupation, mostly because of its isolated position. It was isolated position. That's why it is occupied so many countries and so many places. It was raised the settlements throughout India. So England, however, the physical factors are not only determined factors of scheme of historical casualty, although it is one of the most important factor. History has the ability to improve understanding of man, the ability to improve the understanding of man, which is what past events, which is current events, how will go to the future events. So this is the understanding of man incidents. So like history not only tells us about the right principles of life, not only right principles, but also the warns, the cautions, the warns and the cautions us through the, concentration of examples and investable distractions. Investable distractions. So, of society, if these principles were to be neglected by the man, history is storehouse of human experiences. History is storehouse of human experiences, where nothing is wanting and you get what he deserved. The man, what he was deserved, what he would get what. So it is all preserved by the history. The historian is not satisfied. The historian is not satisfied. Why? Why he was not satisfied with more facts about the past? More facts about the past he was not satisfied. But he is interested too in finding the truth, finding the causes for truth. So the events to take place and attempt to explain the significance of the facts. He was attempted to explain for the significance of past. So history explain about the past events and past activities and with the past and causes, with the truths and causes. There is a continuing progress of interaction between the historians and the facts. There is a large discussion. There is a big debate between the historian and the causes. So he was very much concerned with the past events, human aspirations, and human failures. And then he was to be assessed from human point of view. Some gaps are filled his human point of view. So the draw of the past is sought to be explained and interpreted to present from human angels. From human angels. So history is concerned. History is concerned with man in time. Concerned man in time. The time factor is the essence of history. The time factor is essence of history. The why? Because of history is recorded by the chronological order. History is recorded by the chronological order. So it deals with the series of events. It deals with the series of events, and each event occurs at the given point of in a stipulated time. In a stipulated time, it is a time which offers. It is a time which offers a perspective to event and lends charm and brightness up the past, brightness of the past. So, human history, in fact, it is the process of development in nature. It is the process of development. History is the process of development. So, time to time, not only at a time, it is a progress of time to time. So, like that here, there are certain prominent characteristics for nature of history which make in unique and also certain transient features which may change the time to time, which may change the time to time. So here the history nature is denotes as the nature of the history. It is maintained the chronological order. It is recorded the sequence and it is followed the causes and the college causes are examined as rationalistic view. So these are the nature of the history. You can understand, I think. The prominent characteristics of history is had its immutable features. Immutable features. History can distinguished from a science. History, it distinguished a science. So one of the metaphysics on the other nature, the literature on the other hand, and one hand to another hand, just like fine arts, music, other things. Here, the J.B. Bury, a English philosopher, history is a science. He says that no less, no more. So, which means the history is a science. He emphasized that history is a science. The most interesting fact is here about the extent and comprehensiveness of history is that today to we hear of a history of physics, history of physics, physics, which means history of culture, history of civilization, history of religion, history of geography, history of biology. Oh, what a subjects linked with the history. What a subject explained by the history. So, history touched all the subjects, and it is amalgamate in it. All the sciences are amalgamate in it. So, like here, some history of arts, history of mathematics, history of the atom also. So, history of literature. So, here they are mentioned so many languages are. So, everybody, every science is has a history. Every man has a history. Every place have a history. So the scope of the history nowadays infinity. There is no particular measurement for the scope of measurement of history. So history is almost limitless, unlimited. History is almost if you can take the cell phone, the history of cell phone. If you take in the internet, the history of internet, history can explain everything. Why? Because of every article or every science or every incident have the history. So that's why all the incident explained by the history. That's why history is unlimited scope. History is unlimited scope, but it started from wars. Then its scope was very thin and very thick. When Herodotus was and Thucydides was recorded as a history, it is a very small and very thin scope it had. But nowadays, infinity, unlimited. So history deals with the knowledge only when it is associated with the man's endeavors and achievements. So it is associated with man's endeavors and associated with the achievements. It is primarily deals with the who's the pass over the land and ocean without rest, without rest, rather than with the those only stand and wait. It deals the man struggle through the ages, man struggling through the ages with the nature, with the oceans, with the hill stations, with the another animals. So he was struggled much more in the past. So history is explained about all of them. So here history is a dynamic subject and implies the growth. History is a dynamic subject. It is implies the growth, development of evolution. It is whether human evolution, it is whether animal evolution, it is whether industrial evolution. So many, so many, sorry, it was evaluated. So it traces the fascinating story of how man has developed through the ages. So the human evolution, how man was developed through the ages, how man was studied to use the control his environment. So the first the environment, the man was afraid of the nature. Then he was prayed to the God. When he was afraid of the nature, he was prayed to the God. So afterwards, he was struggling with the nature and he occupied that environment. He controls. Sometimes he controls. Sometimes only, not always. Sometimes he control that environment and how the present institutions have grown out of the past. It is not confined to one period and another area as a record all the activities in all periods, all the activities in all periods. So it is never neglected any section or any society. It is never neglected every society and every man also, every place also, it is not neglected. It deals with the various aspects, whether it is aspects or whether it is the political aspect or social aspect or economic aspect or cultural aspect or religious aspect or science and technology aspect. So many aspects are history was discussed to be discussed. So history is a record of facts of past. History is a record of facts of past or past facts of history. So history enables to a person himself as a part of living progress, human life, human growth, which has emerged out faster, extensively project itself beyond the own our life, own our lifetime. So here, when the we are the product of the past, not completed the product. We are the product of the past, not completed. To be producted so many generations. So we are producted the past. The production was not completed. So the another generations are to become. Another generations to become. The product is not completed. The product is not stopped. It is a continuous process through the ages. So history is an interpretation of past and present. History is a interpretation of past and present, predicating that future time. Predicated that future time. History is the sense becomes a prophecy is resolved and demonstrating the past meaningful preparation since historical occurrences take place, time, space, and nature, and wildlife, and casual connections, motivations, etc. So, the progress of history creates the one generation to another generation. So, history is a social memory. History is a social memory. Suppose we got independent at 1947, August 15. It is a memory of our social life. It is a memory of our social life. This is the collectively memory. Not only independence, not only a person, independence, not only a race, independent, not only a tribe or caste or commune. So it is for all. Indian people. So this is collective memory. This is the collective memory. So, but it may not always be dependable. It is may not depend. So the history was moving towards human perfectibility. It is moving towards human perfectibility. So, and through the steady accumulation of knowledge, through the study of accumulation of knowledge and the triumph of reason, the examine of causes, the triumph of reasons. History mobilizes people to think and be responsible. History is mobilizes or history provokes to think new, to think new, to do new, and to be responsible for that, to be responsible for that. So, as like it is, the historical forces considered to be linear by some and cyclical by others. Cyclical by others. So, those who hold the linear view of history think it is to be straight line from the unknown past passing through the known present to the unknown future. Known present. So why we are currently living that we knows what is what. So known present to the unknown future. Present known and unknown future. And from this point, the there is a close continuity in history. There is a close continuity in history. Forward thrust in the movement. Thrust in the movement, never reversing in course. It is a course. So, and making progress as it goes. The ideas of progress links up the with the present and gives unity history, making it a solid piece from one to and another. Those who hold the cyclical view of history think that history moves in circle. There is a straighting point and the upward movement until the reaches the peak, until the reaches the peak. So in the early days, in the early days, history was considered as nothing a science. It is house legends, heroic sagas. It is a heroic sagas and accounts of folks and folk tales and folks and folk tales. But as days passed by, as days passed by, the scope of history underwent significant changes. Underwent significant changes from the beginning of Herodotus and Thucydides after the word of the Saint Augustine. They are elaborate the scope of the history, and history is a then history is a, not a science. It is the treated by uh, the old generations. It is treated by the past previous people, the primitive man, the people were treated it as a myths, as Puranas, or tales, or folk tales. So like that, they are treated this history. But nowadays, it is its significance was much more. So nobody can deny the significance of history. So like here, the central purpose of history must therefore be investigate and unfold the values, investigate and unfold the values which are after having the inspired habitations of a country to develop. habitations of all the countries are having that habitations, but how they are controlled, how they are developed, and how they are collectively decide the determinations, and how they are collectively formed as a society. So these are all learned from the history. So it will express in through the manifold activities through the ages. So necessarily history has excluded from the in purview to the study of natural objects and animals, birds, or reptiles, etc. Since it confines the attention to the story of main evolution, humble beginnings, complex achievements. So here we says that history is not a record of human beings. History is not a record of dynasties. History is not a record of a group of people. What is history? What is the history? History is recorded all the human beings along with the nature. Human beings along with the nature. So, like animals also came in that, and birds also came in that, and the objects and the territories and the geographical features, all of them composed in history. Since it confined the attention of the story, the man's evolution from humble blessings to the complex of achievements. So the Arabs used to stay history of kings. The Arabs are composed or Arabs are Arabs to stay the history for the kings and warriors. You know very well warriors. So the warriors and poetry for them and arithmetic for the shopkeepers, arithmetic for shopkeepers. But history is supposed to give complete picture, everything that has influenced man directly on or indirectly. So the scope of history unique, the origin of past determined the relationship and accompanies. So he knows that the social forces are human energies organizing in the individual motivations. It is the individual motivations and the manifestation of power and the manifestation of power. Some scholars assumed the history has a very good start, but by the time passes, it reached once into hands of historians from treatment it gets are deteriorated. Deteriorated. So why some historians, some scholars are like that. So in this connection, it is better and fitter to explain the diagram that one man flesh is another man's position. So a history that had been uh, eulogized by the it admires its signals and significant of service having done humanity and a whole now came in service of criticism at the hand of hands of historians like Voltaire, you know, French revolutionary philosopher Voltaire, and Edward Gibbon, and so they are began to say that history is a just portrayal crimes, portrayal crimes and misfortunes, crimes and misfortunes. They are opined that, but not it correct. So history is a science, not a misfortunes. History is a not a it is a portraying. It is a built up. It is a construction of human societies in past. It is a construction of human societies in the past. So, moreover, wide. So they are opined like that. Their negative opinions are there. So the history takes us to the great theory of great men. It is nothing but science. History of so somebody opined that like that here. So Thomas Carlyle, he was a great exponent of his theory. He believed that the universal history, the universal history at the bottom of the work of great men. So, just like the life of great men also being a history, the inventions of a great warrior also be a history. So the policies of great men being a history. So like this, all the incidents, all the good incidents, not a bad incident. So bad incidents also denote the history, but a good incidents are recorded by the history. Suppose we are taking the biography of Mahatma Gandhi, biography of Nehru, biography of Jinnah, biography of Babar, biography of Akbar, like this, all the biographies. These people are being a great man. So the life of great men, nothing but a history. The Carlyle commented on that. The Carlyle defined as that. So the growth of history has accompanied the growth of a human race. The growth of history accompanied with the race. So which race was growth? Getting a growth, history is recorded that development and that growth. So history as present days no more restricted, no more restricted, no more restrictions are there. So the study of political activities also being a history, and it comprises the studies of his a man's achievements. The great man's achievements also be a making history, and the socio-economic and religious and philosophical and educational. So these all events also being a what is that being a incidents of history. So here the artistic and cultural, industrial and technological and scientific fields, starting from the ancient times to up to the modern age. Ancient times to up to the modern age. So these are all events recorded by the historians. So it is not a minimized scope. It was enlarged. It is developed. It is illustrate that evolution of human being. History is no longer branch of literature or politics and philosophy. So it has depends the status of whose man functions to know, to study the societies in an aspect of promoting the culture, an aspect of promoting that culture, and which constitute the knowledge, gain, and belief, art, morals, customs, and traditions. All the capabilities, all the habits are acquired man as the member of the society. It is in this way, its scope was very wide and many, in fact, the wides as world as extreme. So the scope of movements also history is explored so many different revolutionary movements like the religious movements, just like religious movements in American Revolution, or Martin Luther King revolution, or Sufi movement in India. So like that so many revolutions also explained by the history, and the women movement, and the tribal movement, and the Dalit movement. So all these movements also explained by the history. Okay, history, the scope of the history is very large. It is very infinity. So, what is the significance of history? What is the significance? What is the importance? Why we are learning that history? So, history offers the storehouse of information. It is the storehouse of information about the people and societies understanding operations of people and society of difficult times, understanding the difficult times and disciplines of human behavior, discipline life of human behavior, and exclusive rely, reliance on current data would needlessly handicap our efforts. Some social scientists, like their attempt to the formulated laws or acts or theories and about the human behavior. But even those resources depend on historical information and the people's acts, and often the artificial causes in which experiments can be devised determine how the people act major aspects of this society, the major aspects of the society. So here, what is the significance? What is the importance of the history? The major aspects of the society is the operations like mass elections, missionary activities, military alliances, and cannot be pass set up as the precise the experiments, precise the experiments. So consequently, history must serve, however, imperfectly, and laboratory and data must be fast. So all the historians' depictions of the past changes also. It has been argued that history tells us more about the time in which it is written than the time about the which it is written. So it has it is the event of recorded in the history how generations, all the emotions, values, ideas that makes life meaningful, that have given means something to live for, struggle over the die for, over the die for. Thank you. Thank you, one and all. Okay, next meet you next class.
Thank you.